I guess when miracle drugs first come out, man's innate optimism has a way of shielding him from any doubts he might have concerning its negative side effects. I mean, we all want to believe that there's got to be something that can make us feel better and heal us from our ailments and pain. It's just that time and time again, we find that this stuff makes now better and the future, well, worse. Such was the case with a painkiller called Minextrin. Well, they called it a painkiller anyway, but I think all-around feel-good, pep you up, and make every day a little more livable drug would be more suitable. I mean, this stuff was amazing. We're talking one little pill that could take away your pain and replace it with pure, blissful energy. Sounds great, right? Like a narcotic. Except it had a very low addiction rate. It didn't get you high, so to speak, but instead just made you feel new again. Not to mention, it was like a super vitamin that maintained your health and even reduced the effects of fatigue and aging. Apparently, there is a small, little understood portion of the brain that is greatly concerned with electrical activity, and Minextrin stimulates and increases its propensity to affect daily brain mechanics. The brain begins generating all sorts of interesting electrical waves throughout the entire nervous system, and the body begins to heal and renew itself. Were there side effects, you ask? Of course, but no one knew about them for a very long time. As a matter of fact, Minextrin was being sold over the counter for almost a decade before anyone really got a clue. I guess the first I heard about any of it was through what you call urban legends. Living in the Midwest, you hear all kinds of messed up stories when you're a kid about ghosts and serial killers. When I was in junior high, I heard the first of the zombie stories. So-and-so's mother gets sick and dies sitting in her chair one night, but the family doesn't realize it until 3 days later when she starts to smell. A young couple's newborn dies of crib death only to keep on crying for another week. Scary stories to tell while you're sleeping over in someone's treehouse. But we all knew they were just stories, of course. At least that is until 2 years later when the news reports came out, and it was revealed by undisclosed sources in the FBI that there had been a massive government cover-up initiated by a president whose number one lobbyist was none other than the CEO of Minextrin Enterprises. All over the United States, there were claims of people walking around with no heartbeat or vital signs. I mean, these folks were dead men, but sure as I'm here right now, they were still moving. Now, immediately, of course, people overreacted and started flooding the churches and boarding up their houses, thinking that George A. Romero was a prophet and that they were indeed coming to get you, Barbara. Fortunately, that was not the case. For a report in my senior year in college, I interviewed a woman named Nancy, who was a 50-year-old charge nurse in a local nursing home. Nursing homes, so it seems, were hotspots for zombie activity. As I sat in the woman's apartment off of West Main Street, I found out why. "It's not like in those stupid movies," she said, blowing smoke out from her nose like a card shark at a poker table. "Most of them is just sort of like in a dream. It's like the last thing going through your head when you pass just seems to keep playing like a CD on repeat. The only time you really got trouble is when they have issues." "Issues?" I asked with intense curiosity. "Yeah, you know. Hostility, aggression. You get someone who dies with hate in their heart, and my God, do you have a handful. Because let me tell you, kid, those things don't just stop when you say please." "So, what do you do with them when someone goes all zombie?" "Well, first, there isn't all that many of them, like some of those papers say. Not everybody who goes comes back. I think mostly you have to be pretty much intact physically. Most of them that I've seen went in their sleep or of strokes and the like, but from what I've read in the medical journals, if you suffocate or overdose, then it can happen." "Do they talk?" "Oh yeah, some of them you can't even tell the difference from when they's alive. They'll ramble on, mumbling and weeping, kind of like Alzheimer's patients, except that they always hit a point of repetition. That's what it's all about with them, repetition. But you get one that's in a rage, And that rage just keeps going and going. So, what do you do with them then?
Call the zombie squad.
The zombie squad? I said with a sudden surge of curiosity.
Yeah, well, that's what we call them. I think they refer to themselves as animated disposal units. They're not supposed to call them zombies, you see, out of respect for their families. We call them the animated, like they were cartoons or something.
How do you get in contact with these zombie squad?
Honey, they're in the phone book.
That was it for me. I knew what I was going to do from the moment that Nurse Nancy had said those two fascinating words. I wanted to join a zombie squad. I started my job hunt on the internet, and sure enough, there were zombie squads in every major city and some small towns. Their web pages promised safe, discreet, and clean disposal of all your animate problems. And to my sheer joy, down at the bottom of the page was a call for applications. I sent mine that night. The next morning, I got a call from a polite and cheerful woman asking me when I would like to make an appointment for an interview. I was out the door and an hour headed for Trent City. It was midsummer and so hot that I was sweating rivers when I drove up to their office, an old laundromat. I went in and sighed as the cool air of the air conditioning hit me. The room was large and empty except for fold-out tables and chairs set up near the back. It was dark and smelled like dust and mildew. A woman sat at a nearby desk, talking on the phone and typing away on an old typewriter at the same time. She saw me and smiled, waving back at me from the desk. Hanging up the phone, she said,
"You must be Jack."
Yeah, I just talked to you a while ago.
"Aren't you the eager one?" "Well, have a seat, Jack. My name is Cindy, and I'm the office manager here at Trent City Animate Disposal. I'm sure you understand what we do here, Jack, and I am obligated to tell you that this kind of work just isn't for some people." "Are you squeamish, Jack?"
"No, ma'am."
"Good. Do you have any history of mental illness or depression?"
No, ma'am."
"Excellent. Have you had any recent deaths in your family or close to you?"
No, ma'am."
"Great. I have to ask because in a job that is so closely associated with death, it can be a real problem if someone is currently working through any issues."
"Yes, I understand, ma'am. I just have always been fascinated with this entire situation, and I feel compelled to delve deeper. I want to understand what is really going on. I think that here might be the only place where I can get those answers."
"That's interesting, Jack, but do you understand that this is first and foremost a job? We are not here to help you answer your philosophical quandaries. If you're here, then you should be here to work."
"Oh, I know that, ma'am. I also might add I desperately need a job."
"Now that's what I wanted to hear. You're hired. Would you mind starting today?"
Sure."
"Fantastic. The guys are out on call right now, but you can start orientation right now. Go to the back table where that little TV is and start watching those videos. It'll take about 4 hours. There's a lot of ground to cover."
The first video was an in-depth, somewhat corporate explanation of how Minextrin caused post-death electrical impulses to flood the body in some specific people, causing a semi-lifelike state of continued activity. Video 2 was an introduction to the various techniques of restraining and containing animates. Apparently, one of the main devices used was a large neck clamp with a small stainless steel blade contraption within it. Oddly, just like in the old Romero movies, the brain had to be severed from the spinal column for the activity to cease. The squad member would approach the animate from behind and clamp the device around their neck. And then with a simple pull of a lever, the blade would neatly sever the nerves at the base of the brain above the spinal column without severing the head. This was done so the family members would not have to witness the mutilation of their loved one. In some rare cases, firearms could be employed, but the most useful weapon against a raging animate was a 3-foot-long razor-sharp machete that looked bizarrely like a giant army survival knife. Video 3 was presented by an insurance company explaining all possible legal consequences of violating the Animate Disposal Code of Conduct. There are laws to protect the animated and their family, but very few to protect you, the man in the fine black suit explained, as a list of violations in the code rolled up the screen. The last video was an instructional video for the safe handling and removal of cadavers, complete with procedures on what to do after a job. The body was taken to the morgue where a full autopsy would be performed before its last proper burial. Also, full police reports would be made and filed within 24 hours. The police are our friends, said a different man dressed in what I guessed was Zombie Squad gear. It was at the end of this video that I noticed the door of the office opening and 5 men dressed in gray Zombie Squad uniforms enter.
Is that the new guy in the back?
Asked the short, stocky man with the bald head who carried one of the neck clamps from the video.
Sure is, Stan. Now be nice, guys. He's just a baby.
Sweetie, he's going to hunt zombies, and you want me to pamper him, said a huge giant with another shaved head, but a full beard.
You know what I mean, Roy. We can't lose another one. You know that state law says we have to have 6 members to every squad. He's the only applicant this month. If we lose him, they might take our license.
Yeah, that's right, Roy, so play nice with your new friend, said the thin, lanky younger man with a long brown hair pulled back in a sweaty ponytail.
You never know. He could be the Gilligan to your skipper.
The thin man laughed, tossing a large sheathed zombie knife onto one of the tables.
Now, you know that can't happen, Lee,
said Will, the most professional-looking man of the group.
We all know that you're the Gilligan in this bunch.
Oh, nuts, Lee laughed.
I thought I was the professor.
I thought you were Ginger, said a blonde squad member who poured himself coffee as he winked at Lee.
You wish I was Ginger, don't you, Marty?
Lee chuckled as he leaned suggestively back against the wall.
I wish you were Robert Pattinson, but he's straight too,
Marty said, staring at the Twilight poster I hadn't noticed before.
If he's straight, then I'm Antonio Banderas,
said the small Hispanic who was busily checking over a large case of devices before him.
You'll always be my Zorro, Marty,
said with an exaggerated lisp as he ruffled the dark man's thick, wavy hair.
So, what's your name, new guy?
Lee asked, walking up and extending his hand.
I'm Jack Kirtland,
I said, smiling and eagerly shaking his long, bony fingers.
Cool. Pleased to meet you.
And as he spoke, I heard the phone ring and Cindy hurriedly rushed through a conversation before hanging up.
We got a call, boys. Trent City Center. Who wants to go?
I'll take it, Lee said, rubbing his eyes.
Let's go, Jack. You're on the job.
Are you serious? I said, standing up, my legs feeling strangely weak.
I told you that you were going to start tonight. Uniforms are in the back.
But just the 2 of us? I choked confusedly.
It's a routine call, bro. Nothing too scary. It'll be an in-and-out job. I really just need you to help me load the body afterwards.
Okay, I said, suddenly feeling like I had my leg caught in a bear trap and no way to escape. An hour later, I was riding in an old rusty van as Lee drummed his hands on the steering wheel to Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane.
Don't worry, dude. This is the coolest job that you'll ever have. I mean, not only are you helping people, but hell, man, we're freaking zombie hunters. We're living a dream, man. I mean, what are you gonna get a job at freaking Walmart when you could be tangling with the living dead? This ain't no video game, dude. Just wait, you'll love it.
And you know what? I did. When we walked up into the nursing home, we were like heroes coming to save the day. The nurses and aides were all talking and gesturing us down the halls as Lee smiled and calmly told them that everything would be all right. They led us to the dining room, and quickly I realized that this was no routine extraction. There were breaking sounds and crashes behind the closed doors. When we went in, there was utter chaos. Oh, no, dude, Lee said, shaking his head. What, Lee? What is it?
Dude, we got a rager, man.
A rager? I said as we closed the door carefully behind us, the crashing noises still resounding from the kitchen.
Dude, which means it's mad, man. When it died, it was all ticked off over something, and now it's raging.
Well, should we call for backup or something?
That would be great, dude, but the thing's got to go down now. If it gets out, it will kill people, man. The rages are strong. I mean, like you wouldn't believe. They go after everything in their path. Puppy dogs, kittens, everything.
Well, what do we do?
Just stay back.
Let me handle it. And whatever you do, don't let it out.
Here, help me,
he said as he pushed a dining table against the doors.
Hush, listen.
Lee whispered, leaning into the noise from the kitchen.
It's talking.
I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
Came constant growling screams from an elderly male voice.
Stop trying to make me eat when I'm not hungry,
continued the rant.
Don't offer him a cheeseburger, dude,
Lee whispered,
smiling ghoulishly.
Here, man. Lee reached into his belt and withdrew a snub-nosed pistol.
Just in case. You gotta protect yourself. Just don't shoot me, alright? Lee, this is crazy. Dude, chill out, man. It ain't alive anymore. This is a public service. We're like firemen or something. Only the fire is a big, angry dead dude, okay?
With all that, Lee began creeping towards the kitchen, slowly withdrawing his zombie knife as he went. As we drew near, it was clear that the animate was clawing at the other door, which the nurses had locked to contain it. It was still screeching its insane rant when we pushed the swinging door from the dining room open and saw it standing in bloodied pajamas and robe on the far side of the kitchen. When it noticed us, it slowly turned and gazed at us with empty blue eyes, its mouth hanging open like someone heavily sedated. Its fingers were mauled by its clawing, and it had torn the kitchen down to a mess of broken plates and dented pans.
I'm not hungry,
it groaned as it slowly stepped forward at its slippered feet. I gripped the gun tightly and placed my finger across the trigger.
Get ready, dude.
Ready for what? And before the last syllable was made, the animate burst forth with bizarre and unnatural speed. It was like a rabid animal leaping across the tile with its hands bared like claws. Lee leapt to the side and rolled across the broken glass like some kind of action movie leading man, sweeping the animate off of its feet with a kick as he went. He quickly jumped down and attacked as he dodged and planted what appeared to be a roundhouse punch to its lower back. Lee brandished the zombie knife and with a single solid strike sliced the animate's head from its body. The head fell to the floor of the kitchen with a thunk.
Wow. Dude, good job.
Lee was removing a handkerchief from his back pocket and wiping the blade clean.
But I didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, but you didn't shoot me.
Pretty cool, huh?
But what do you mean, dispose of?
Said the middle-aged woman standing on the porch of her house, while me, Marty, and Roy stood in the driveway at high noon about a week after my first experience at the nursing home.
Isn't that what you called us for?
Will said, as he was the acting official zombie squad representative today. Roy got frustrated too easily, so it was usually one of the others who had to do the talking.
I didn't call you. I called the doctor to check out Paul, and after he came, he called you.
The lady was somewhat irate.
Oh boy,
Will said, wiping the sweat from his forehead as he spoke.
Ma'am, did the doctor say why he called us?
No, he just said that it wasn't something that he could handle, and that he would have to call specialists. What the hell is wrong with my dad? Is he contagious or something?
Ma'am, exactly what is your dad doing?
I said, stepping forward in an attempt to help Will with the obviously delicate situation.
Well, to be honest, he's just doing chores.
Chores, ma'am? Will questioned.
Yeah, well, he's been doing chores for the past 3 days, non-stop. He won't eat, and he won't sleep. It's ridiculous, and when I tried to talk to him, he just mumbles that every day is a work day or something. Has he gone loony? Are you boys from the loony bin?
No, ma'am, not exactly. Do you watch TV much? Will said sheepishly.
No, sir, we don't believe in such things.
Ma'am, I said, trying to sound diplomatic, is there anyone else in your family we could talk to who does?
My God, what is going on here? Now, I will not tolerate being treated like a fool. Is Pa sick or not?
He's dead, woman!
Roy suddenly burst out.
Good Lord, woman! He's done kicked the bucket and is still out there keeping up the farm.
Will grabbed Roy's shoulder and punched him in the arm angrily.
You know you can't say that, Roy.
Will growled.
You'll get us sued.
But it was too late. Roy was off and running.
Lady, didn't you notice him stinking up the yard with his rotten self? Jesus! Lady, how long do you think a person can go without food and water? I mean, seriously, 3 days? He must be drawing flies by now in this heat.
The woman's face was a portrait of shock.
Dead?
She said quietly, almost falling back across the porch.
Lady, for the past few years, these things have been popping up all over the place. What did he do? Fall asleep in his chair? And then get up the next day and start working? What? How did you know that? He was just working out in the field late and he came in and fell asleep in his rocker, but no, there's no way. He's moving and talking. Lady, I'm sorry. I really am.
Roy said, becoming uncharacteristically sympathetic.
You gotta understand that we have to do something. These things can keep on going for weeks, and the longer he goes, the worse it will get. They don't stiffen up like normal dead folk, lady. He'll be tending the farm till he's just a slab of molded meat. I mean, you'll be fighting to keep critters off of him.
The woman broke her stunned silence.
I'm calling the police.
Great. Here we go, Will said, leaning back against the van. The sheriff arrived and we spoke to him. He knew the would-be customer well enough that he sat down with her on the porch swing and explained as rationally as anyone could what was going on. The woman wept and ranted about the world being insane as we gathered our gear and walked around to the back of the house. There was the old farmer walking across the barnyard with a pail of water in his discolored, decaying hands. Flies swarmed around him in a cloud as he approached the horses that in terror fled to the other side of the fence. We walked up as Roy readied the zombie clamp and Will circled to the front. Will held a camera, which he shot several photos with before withdrawing a thermal video camera from his pack, checking to assure that the animate's body temperature was correctly incorrect for a living being. In cases like this, it always paid to be careful and make sure that all procedures were carried out. This was Will's specialty. Details. Roy walked up behind the farmer and in one movement attached the clamp. The animate kept walking as if oblivious to the contraption. Roy pulled into a halt and the farmer stood still, the flies gathering around his eyes and mouth worriedly. I stepped forward, putting on my rubber surgical gloves used in my small pocket flashlight to examine the animate's retinal response, which was none. Then, taking the stethoscope, I listened for a pulse and respiration, which also was none. I stepped back and nodded to Roy, who prepared the mechanism by unlocking the safety switch. As I stood and gazed into the farmer's dried, blue, gummy-like eyes, I heard a croak begin to emerge from within his unmoving chest as he spoke. "Every day's a work day," he uttered in a husky, sick moan.
Tell me about it,
Roy responded as he pulled the lever, and the body at last dropped to the dried, cracked earth. Well, we've talked about it, and we don't think we'll be requiring our services, said the young man, who acted as a representative for the large family gathered in the living room of the upscale rural house. These people had already begun what appeared to be a funeral services, except that the deceased was sitting on the sofa, talking away casually like a radio playing in the background.
You have to be joking,
Marty said under his breath. Me and Marty stood by the front door as Stanley, in his usual gruff tone, tried to reason with the young yuppie couple who stood before them.
Well, she's really fine,
The wife added, holding her husband's arm.
she's just chatting away.
She's really no bother. Ma'am, Stan said politely, your mother is deceased. You cannot just keep her around. And trust me, the nursing home won't take her.
We would never put my mother in a nursing home,
The man said, obviously offended by the suggestion.
We just think it's a little too soon to be disposing of her like old garbage. I mean, sometimes she seems almost conscious.
Sir, there is no way she is even close to conscious. Haven't you noticed that her stories seem a little repetitive? Stan said in his I'm trying to be nice, but I'm still condescending voice.
Well, her stories were always repetitive, the wife stated. That's no reason just to get rid of her.
Okay, ma'am. This is what we're going to do. You have our number, and when you all feel comfortable letting go, just give us a call. To tell the truth, I'm not supposed to do this since it's an obvious health code violation.
What do you mean?
He said, raising his eyebrow questioningly. Sir, she will eventually begin to decompose, and that's not safe to have around. But hey, it's your house, and there's really nothing I can do. So, I'll see you later. As we left, the couple and the rest of the family who had listened in were held in silence. You can't just leave, I said, unable to comprehend Stan's intentions. Jack, do you know how many times I've had to talk to people who think that they can just keep those things around? I mean, for Pete's sake, it's like every customer just can't let go. But you know what? They always call back. Always. And so they did 1 week later. When the door opened, only the man stood there this time immediately. I was sickened by the smell of decay that hung heavy in the room. As we entered, we noticed that the radio was blaring. The man quickly used a remote to turn it down, only to reveal the continuing croaking sound of the ongoing conversation his deceased mother was having with empty air.
You've got to do something. I mean, she never stops,
the man said, his eyes bloodshot with lack of sleep.
My wife has gone to stay with her sister, and Mom, she just keeps going. And the smell, oh my God, the smell.
Well, sir, that's what we're here for. You can stay if you like, but you might prefer to leave the room. Stan gestured as Marty readied the clamp.
I'm so sorry, Mom,
the man said, weeping as he left the room. As we drove away from the house, Stan looked over at me and turned down the MP3 player, which was blasting Sunshine of Your Love. What's up, kid? Hey, you seem awful quiet.
I can't do this anymore, Stan,
I said as tears crept down from my eyes.
This is just too much. I mean, what am I going to do? Just pretend that this doesn't bother me? I can't sleep anymore, Stan. I'm scared I'm going to die in my sleep and come back as one of the animates. My mom used to take me next to her, Stan.
Everyone did, Marty said, leaning up from the back and placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Hell, they put ibuprofen, acetaminophen, and aspirin out of business for a decade. I know, but I don't want to clean up the mess that the drug companies made, guys. This isn't a game, guys. It's like some kind of nightmare. They are
were people, man. I mean, I'm beginning to hope that we'll all die violently so that we don't have to walk around after it's over drawing flies like that farmer. How many squads are there now, guys?
Thousands, Stan said stoically.
Right, there are thousands. Do you know how many animates there are? They are everywhere. You walk up to someone on the street and you don't know if they're alive or if they died of a heroin overdose an hour before and are now looking for another fix. Even ever been offered oral sex from a zombie? What about that rager last week? That teenage boy who took all the pills because he hated school, then ended up going to school and attacking all the other kids. He put Lee in the hospital, man. That kid would have killed everyone in that classroom if it wasn't for us, Jack, Marty said pleadingly. Right, man. But there will always be more, and more, and more. And when does it end? That's it, guys. I'm out. I quit.
And quit I did. I just quit and tried to lead a normal life. The animates were still there. You can't avoid them nowadays. Apparently, Minextrin creates genetic defects that goes on for generations. And nobody seems to know how many. Recent studies have shown that 9 out of 10 of us are capable of becoming animates. A year after I left the zombie squad, I was sitting at home eating a chili dog and watching the news. In Trent City, there had been a huge disaster. Someone had set off a biological weapon at a football game. There had been widespread panic and almost immediate death to everyone there. That would have been bad enough, except that almost all of them, within an hour, animated. The Trent City Animate Disposal Unit was one of the first groups on the scene. They were now considered missing in action. Knowing what I knew about those guys, I would guess that's how they would have wanted it. Or at least that's what I told myself. I don't think I ever really understood the mindset it took for them to continue doing that job for so many years. Maybe they would have wanted to go out doing their job as heroes, and at least going out knowing that they would not have to come back and mill around with the rest of us. To this day, I do not know my fate. I don't know just how I will go or if I will come back. I guess it just doesn't really matter. I just go to bed at night, get up from my job at Beefy Burgers the next morning. After all, every day is work. Sometimes I admit that I ask myself if the entire animate condition is fate's ironic joke on a society of people routinely going about their daily lives like automatons or zombies. But this thought leaves me feeling empty. These deeper, more philosophical thoughts I place in a box buried somewhere in the attic of my mind, labeled the Zombie Squad.